For 3,000 years, the galaxy had known peace. The Galactic Concord, a powerful coalition of intelligent species, ensured that the stars remained calm, with no war, no conflicts, and no bloodshed. Most civilizations, including humanity, had thrived in this time of stability, building technology and culture in the absence of violence. Humanity, once a young and wild species, had transformed into a respected member of the Concord, known for their ingenuity, diplomacy, and surprisingly, their peaceful nature. However, this long-lasting peace was about to face its first real test. The Salvatrix Empire, a warlike species from the distant corner of the galaxy, had always been a threat. For centuries, they had been contained by the Concord's laws, their hunger for power restrained by the simple rule of peace. But as the years passed, the Salvatrix began to grow restless. They were no longer satisfied with merely holding their territories. They wanted more. They wanted dominance, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get it. One day, a strange transmission came from the Salvatrix capital. It was a simple message, direct and clear. The voice of the Salvatrix Supreme Leader echoed across the galaxy. The peace is over. Humanity has grown weak. We are declaring war. At first, no one believed it. The Concord had never known such an enemy. An empire so brazen, so bold, that they would break the peace treaty that had held for millennia. But as the transmission repeated over and over again, doubt began to settle in. The Salvatrix were serious. They were no longer interested in diplomacy or negotiations. They wanted war. The human representatives in the Concord Council sat in stunned silence. The room was full of species from across the galaxy, but none of them knew what to say. The Salvatrix were powerful, undoubtedly so, but their military might had always been held in check by the Concord's unity. Could they really break the peace and risk everything? Some of the council members immediately began drafting responses. Messages of peace, appeals to reason, attempts to remind the Salvatrix of their place in the Concord. Others, more pragmatic, suggested preparing defenses, warning humanity to brace for the worst. They couldn't risk ignoring the threat. But then, the humans did something unexpected. A small delegation of human diplomats stood up. They were calm, composed, even amused. One of them, a tall woman with silver-gray hair and piercing blue eyes, stepped forward. Her name was Alana Dureth, a seasoned diplomat who had represented humanity in the Concord for decades. She raised her hand, signaling for silence. "Why do we respond with fear?" she asked, her voice carrying across the room. "We've been at peace for 3,000 years, yes, but peace does not mean weakness. We are not the frightened children we once were." There was a quiet murmur from the assembly. Some species nodded, agreeing with her. Others exchanged confused glances. Alana continued, her tone becoming more confident. "The Salvatrix think we've grown soft. They believe we've forgotten what it means to fight. They think they can simply march into our world and demand submission. But they've miscalculated. The time for peace may be over, but humanity will not be so easily defeated." Her words were bold. They were not what anyone had expected to hear. Humanity, the species that had been at the heart of the Galactic Concord's unity, was now facing a choice: respond with force or try to negotiate. The room was divided. One of the older representatives, an alien known as Veclor from the peaceful Hadrani species, stood to speak. His voice was low but full of wisdom. "What is it you mean to do, Alana? How do we fight the Salvatrix? They are a warlike empire. Even the Concord could not stop them if they truly meant to conquer." Alana smiled slightly. "The Salvatrix don't understand us. They think we are weak, because we've avoided war for so long. But they don't know what humanity is capable of. We've spent thousands of years preparing for this moment, and now they will see why we have never feared war." The assembly was still uncertain, but there was an undeniable sense of anticipation in the air. The Salvatrix had declared war, and humanity was not going to back down. As the meeting concluded, representatives returned to their ships and stations, preparing for the inevitable. The Salvatrix war fleets were already on their way, massive ships streaking through space toward human-controlled systems. But humanity wasn't afraid. In fact, across the galaxy, on every human world, there was something strange happening. People were going about their daily lives, just as they always had, yet there was a subtle shift in the air. A quiet confidence began to grow. They had been at peace for so long, and now they were ready to show the galaxy what it meant to face a species that had been in preparation for this moment for thousands of years. The Salvatrix had made a dangerous mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and they would soon find out just how wrong they were. The Salvatrix, having broadcast their war declaration across the galaxy, waited. The mighty war fleet of the Salvatrix Empire was already moving, its colossal ships stretching across the stars like shadows. The galaxy held its breath. What would humanity do? Would they bow to the inevitable? Would they beg for peace? Or, as the Salvatrix so smugly assumed, would they crumble before the unstoppable power of the Empire? The answer came much sooner than anyone expected. At the Galactic Concord Council meeting, the human delegation had left the room after Alana Dareth's confident speech. While the rest of the galaxy was still reeling from the shock of the Salvatrix declaration, the humans were already preparing for what came next. Most species around the galaxy believed that humanity's peaceful nature would leave them vulnerable. For years, humans had been known as diplomats, explorers, and scientists, never a species that raised a hand in anger. Their reputation for peaceful negotiation was their strength. But what the Salvatrix failed to grasp was that peace did not mean weakness. It meant something entirely different. Back in the human colonies, the moment Alana's words echoed through the council chambers, the gears of an ancient, secret machine began to turn. Beneath every human colony, every outpost, and every city, hidden systems began to activate. These systems weren't designed for farming or trade. No, they were designed for war. Silent, dormant defenses that had been waiting for the day when humanity would have to defend itself. One by one, human planets sent their first response to the Salvatrix. It wasn't a fleet of ships, nor a war cry that echoed through the stars. It was a message. Come at your own risk, the message said. Humanity is not a peaceful species. You'll soon understand why. The Salvatrix, confident in their superiority, laughed at the message. How could these weak, peaceful beings possibly stand a chance against their might? They continued their march toward the human colonies, believing the message was nothing more than empty words. However, the moment the Salvatrix warships entered the outer reaches of human space, they encountered something unexpected. A series of massive energy shields, previously thought to be inactive, flickered into life. The Salvatrix had planned to pass through human space without resistance, assuming that humans would retreat or surrender. But they were wrong. The energy shields protected the human worlds, as if they had been active all along. On the planet of Earth, the ancient defense systems, long buried beneath oceans and mountains, rose from the ground. Massive metal structures rose up from the depths of the oceans, while cities far from conflict zones suddenly sprang into action. Hidden launch systems buried deep under the Earth's crust began firing missiles into space, targeting the Salvatrix ships with incredible precision. The Salvatrix fleet was caught completely off guard. They had expected to face a weak, defenseless species, one that would flee or negotiate. Instead, they encountered a hidden force, one prepared for the very war they had thought impossible. In their flagship, the Salvatrix Supreme Leader stared in disbelief at the reports. How is this possible? He muttered to himself. He had thought that humanity had grown weak, that centuries of peace had left them vulnerable. But it wasn't weakness he had found. It was something far more dangerous. It was preparation. The Salvatrix fleet tried to regroup, but the human response was swift and relentless. Every colony, every world, every human outpost had its own defenses, all coordinated through a vast, invisible network. Thousands of ships, not visible to the enemy's radar, began to appear from hidden docking stations across human space, each one carrying advanced weaponry and defense systems that had been built for this very moment. Yet it was not just the technology that the Salvatrix underestimated. It was the human spirit. Despite the overwhelming power of the Salvatrix Empire, humanity didn't react with fear. They didn't panic or give up. Instead, they laughed. They laughed because they knew something the Salvatrix didn't. They had been ready for this day long before the Salvatrix even dared to challenge them. On Earth, Alana Dareth sat in the human command center, watching the battle unfold on countless holographic screens. Her team had been preparing for this for years, making sure that every ship, every weapon, every last defense system was ready to be activated when the time came. And now, that time had arrived. "They're trying to regroup," one of her advisors said, pointing to a map showing the movement of the Salvatrix fleet. "But they're scattered. They don't have the unity they thought they did. The hidden systems are taking them out faster than they can react." Alana smiled, her blue eyes gleaming with quiet confidence. "Let them think they can win. We have one advantage they can never understand. We've been waiting for this. They haven't even begun to see the full extent of humanity's strength." As the Salvatrix ships continued to falter under the unexpected onslaught, humanity made its stance clear. They would not be cowed. They would not submit. The war had begun, and the galaxy was about to witness a conflict unlike any it had ever seen. The Salvatrix had thought they could break humanity with a single declaration of war. Instead, they had awakened a force that had been dormant for thousands of years. And now, the galaxy would see exactly what humanity was capable of. The Salvatrix Empire was beginning to realize that humanity was not the easy target they had believed it to be. Their fleet had been delayed, their ships damaged, and their soldiers left scrambling to understand how such a small species could possess so much power. The humans, it seemed, had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone had expected. The Salvatrix Supreme Leader paced back and forth in his command room aboard the flagship Zalter, one of the largest warships ever built. His sharp features were set in a grim expression as he reviewed the reports pouring in from every sector of human space. The attacks were relentless, fast, and precise. No one had expected humanity to fight back so quickly, so effectively. "How did they know we would come?" the Supreme Leader asked his advisors, his voice tight with frustration. How could they be prepared? A tall Salvatrix officer, his face covered in the smooth greenish scales of their species, looked up from his console. "We underestimated them. Sir, the humans have been ready for this. The war machines they've activated, they've been dormant for centuries. It's like they've been waiting for an invasion." The Supreme Leader clenched his fists. "No, we were certain they had forgotten how to fight. They had no reason to keep such weapons hidden." He was wrong. Humanity had never forgotten how to fight. They simply had never needed to. For thousands of years, humans had lived in peace, focusing on exploration, technology, and diplomacy. They had built a society based on cooperation and understanding. But even in times of peace, humanity had never stopped preparing for the day when peace might shatter. Beneath their peaceful veneer, they had maintained a vast, secret military infrastructure, one that had been dormant, waiting for this exact moment. Across the galaxy, in countless human-controlled sectors, military systems sprang to life. Hidden beneath the surface of everyday life, where farming colonies grew crops and research labs developed new technologies, lay the heart of humanity's defensive strength. Massive underground bunkers, shielded space stations, and deep space fleets, all equipped with the most advanced weaponry the galaxy had ever seen, were now active. But it wasn't just the technology that gave humanity the edge. It was their minds. Humanity had never been a species to follow orders blindly or accept things at face value. They questioned, they innovated, and they adapted. While the Salvatrix relied on brute force and tradition, humans had built a culture based on creativity, problem-solving, and thinking outside the box. Back on Earth, Alana Dereth stood in the Human Command Center, watching a new set of reports flicker across the screen. The Salvatrix fleet had attempted another assault on one of their outer colonies, only to be met with more devastating counterattacks. The fleet had underestimated human strategy, thinking they could simply overwhelm their defenses. "Sir, they're trying to push past our defenses in the Theta system," a young officer reported, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "But we've already rerouted all available ships from nearby systems. Our fleets are everywhere." Alana nodded, her eyes focused on the map of human space that now seemed to pulse with energy. Humanity was not just defending itself. They were fighting back on every front, using every resource at their disposal. "This is just the beginning," Alana said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "We've waited for this moment." The Salvatrix had expected to face a species that would be easily intimidated. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, one that had been quietly preparing for the possibility of war for thousands of years. Every ship that left a human colony, every defense system that activated, was a reminder of what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. The Salvatrix, unable to comprehend the scale of humanity's preparations, continued their assault. They sent more ships, more troops, and more resources, convinced that sheer numbers would eventually break humanity's resolve. But every time they advanced, they were met with fierce resistance. The humans weren't fighting with desperation. They were fighting with purpose. Meanwhile, in the heart of the human war effort, the engineers and scientists who had spent their lives developing these technologies couldn't help but marvel at what they were witnessing. For generations, they had worked on hidden projects, designing weapons that no one would ever need, until now. Weapons that were powered by the energy of entire stars, machines that could turn a planet into a fortress. All of it was now in play. But perhaps the most surprising thing of all was the speed at which humanity had adapted. With each passing day, new strategies were devised. Human ships, once thought to be no match for the might of the Salvatrix, were now outmaneuvering the larger, more rigid warships of their enemies. Each battle, each skirmish, added to their understanding, and each mistake made by the Salvatrix only brought humanity closer to victory. As the Salvatrix fleet staggered under the pressure, the Supreme Leader stood before his advisors, a look of realization finally dawning on him. The humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving. They weren't fighting to protect their homes. They were fighting to prove something. They were showing the galaxy that they were more than capable of defending themselves, and that perhaps was the greatest weapon of all. As the days passed, the Salvatrix Empire found themselves in an ever-deepening quagmire. Their initial arrogance was slowly being replaced by disbelief and confusion. The humans they had once considered weak, fragile, and naive were fighting with a determination they hadn't expected. Worse, the Salvatrix were starting to realize that humanity wasn't just defending themselves. They were actively outsmarting them at every turn. Back in the heart of the Human Command Center, Alana Dereth and her team were working around the clock, coordinating attacks, monitoring enemy movements, and analyzing battle data. The maps displayed on their screens were filled with red marks showing the Salvatrix positions, but they were shrinking, slowly and steadily. Every day, the human forces were pushing them back further. The Salvatrix, with their overwhelming firepower and grand warships, had never imagined they would be on the defensive in this conflict. The battle tactics of the Salvatrix were rigid, built around the belief that strength and numbers were all that mattered. The humans, on the other hand, were agile, flexible, and innovative. "We've cracked their communication codes," said Lieutenant Nash, one of Alana's top officers. "We know where their next move is going to be, and we can outflank them before they even know we're coming." Alana's eyes narrowed as she analyzed the data on her screen. The Salvatrix were trying to regroup in the Livex cluster, but they were leaving a trail of mistakes behind. Humanity's network of defense systems had been designed for peace, but now every last one of those systems had been activated. hidden fleets, orbital weapon platforms, and deep space satellites all moved in perfect coordination to repel the Salvatrix at every turn. They think they can win by brute force, Alana said quietly, but they're missing the most important part of warfare: adaptability. The ability to change, to think on your feet. Humanity has been doing that for centuries. In a far corner of the galaxy, the Salvatrix Supreme Leader continued to watch in disbelief as his fleet faltered. His once proud warships had become tangled in the chaotic, yet precise, maneuvers of humanity's forces. Despite their superior size and firepower, the Salvatrix were slowly losing ground. Worse, they were starting to lose their morale. "They're not fighting a war," one of the Salvatrix generals muttered. "They're playing a game. They anticipate our every move. It's like they've known exactly how we would fight from the beginning." The Supreme Leader clenched his fists. "How can that be possible? We've had hundreds of years to prepare for this. How did they outsmart us so easily?" "They must have been preparing for this for a long time," the general replied, his voice growing more strained. "We thought the humans had forgotten about war, but it seems they were just waiting for the right moment." The Supreme Leader paused, realizing the gravity of the situation. "We've made a grave mistake. We thought we were fighting a weak species, but they've shown us just how dangerous they are." Back on Earth, humanity was not only surviving, they were thriving. They had proven to the galaxy that they were not simply a peaceful race, but one that understood the art of survival. Their history of overcoming adversity had made them stronger, smarter, and more prepared than any of the Salvatrix could have imagined. In the human command center, Alana watched as the reports from the front lines poured in. The Salvatrix fleet had been decimated in a crucial battle near the Vulture Nebula. They had underestimated the power of humanity's hidden technologies. Advanced stealth ships, weapons that harnessed the power of stars, and AI-driven tactics that made human forces nearly impossible to predict. And it wasn't just the military forces. Humanity had united in a way that Salvatrix could never have predicted. There were no borders between human colonies now. Every human, whether from Earth, Mars, or a distant colony, was working together toward one goal: to protect their home and their way of life. Alana's voice rang out as she gave orders to her team. "Prepare to strike at their communications relay on the far side of the Vivex cluster. Without it, they won't be able to coordinate their forces." "Understood," said Lieutenant Nash, already preparing the ships for the operation. Alana turned her attention back to the galaxy map. The Salvatrix were no longer a force that could dictate the outcome of the war. They had underestimated humanity, believing their peaceful ways had made them weak. Now, the Salvatrix had learned the truth. The war they had started was no longer just about survival for humanity. It was about showing the galaxy the true strength of the human spirit. The Salvatrix, now realizing they were losing, began to send out desperate messages. They offered terms of peace, but the damage had already been done. They had broken the trust of the Galactic Concord and the fragile peace that had held for millennia. Alana, standing with her arms crossed, looked out at the map, her gaze steady and resolute. "The war isn't over yet, but we've shown them that humanity is far more than they ever imagined." As the conflict raged on, one thing was clear. The Salvatrix had underestimated humanity's ability to fight, to survive, and to win. And now, the galaxy was about to learn a new truth. Humanity wasn't just here to survive. They were here to lead. The Salvatrix Empire had underestimated humanity from the very beginning. What had begun as a bold and confident war against a supposedly weak species was now turning into a conflict that the Salvatrix could not easily win. As they retreated from their last major defeat, their supreme leader knew that time was running out. His once feared fleet had been reduced to a fragmented and disorganized mess, and morale was at an all-time low. How did it come to this? The supreme leader muttered to himself, staring out at the stars through the viewing windows of his flagship. "We should have crushed them in a matter of days. We are the dominant force in the galaxy, and yet, here we are, retreating." His advisor, a tall, dark-skinned Salvatrix officer, stood by his side, offering what little support he could. "It seems, sir, that the humans were not the peaceful creatures we thought. They have fought back in ways we could never have predicted. Their technology, their tactics, it's all too advanced for us." The Supreme Leader turned, his eyes narrowing with frustration. "This is not just about technology. It's about something more, something we fail to recognize. They have something we don't, something that can't be measured in weapons or ships." He was right. Humanity had something the Salvatrix lacked: an unyielding spirit, a drive to protect what they loved and believed in. While the Salvatrix relied on their size and military might, humans fought with determination, resilience, and innovation. The tide of the war was shifting, and it was clear that humanity had no intention of surrendering. On Earth, Alana Dareth stood before a holographic map of human space, her mind racing as she analyzed the latest reports. The Salvatrix, despite their powerful fleet, were retreating from their last stronghold. Their supply lines were thinning, their ships were damaged, and their forces were spread too thin. Humanity was closing in. "We've done it," Lieutenant Nash said, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and excitement. "The Salvatrix are pulling back. They don't have the strength to continue this fight." Alana nodded slowly, her expression calm but resolute. "This is only the beginning. The Salvatrix might retreat for now, but they'll come back stronger. We need to be ready for that." As the humans celebrated their recent victories, Alana and her team continued to work tirelessly, preparing for the inevitable return of the Salvatrix. The war was far from over. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's ability to defend itself, but the true test was yet to come. Across the galaxy, in the far reaches of Salvatrix-controlled space, the Salvatrix Supreme Leader convened with his top generals, planning their next move. They knew they couldn't afford to lose. Humanity had shown its resilience, but the Salvatrix were not easily defeated. They had resources, technology, and a fierce determination to restore their honor. "We can still win this," the Supreme Leader said, his voice cold and calculating. "We have to strike at their heart. We'll bypass their defenses and attack their homeworld, Earth. That will force them to submit. They will have no choice but to surrender." The generals nodded in agreement. They knew the risks, but they also understood the importance of victory. If they could crush the heart of humanity, they would break the will of the human forces, ending the war once and for all. Back on Earth, Alana was well aware of the threat that Salvatrix posed. She had seen their tactics before, and she knew that they would not back down easily. But what the Salvatrix didn't realize was that humanity was no longer the species they had once thought them to be. The hidden strength, the quiet preparation, the unity of humanity, all of it had led to this moment. Alana called her team together, her voice steady and commanding. "We know what they're planning. They'll attack Earth, trying to break our spirit, but they underestimate us. They always have. We will not let them take our home. We fight for Earth, for our families, and for the future of the galaxy." The team nodded, their resolve firm. Humanity had already proven they could stand against the Salvatrix, and now they would prove they could take the fight to the enemy. In the midst of all this, the humans were not alone. The Galactic Concord, watching from the sidelines as humanity fought for its survival, began to take notice. Alien species, once skeptical of humanity's ability to defend itself, were now offering support. Ships from various planets, some of which had been neutral during the conflict, started to join the human cause. They had seen the courage, the ingenuity, and the strength of the human race, and they wanted to stand with them. "What started as a war for survival is becoming a war for unity," Alana said, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "The galaxy is beginning to realize that when humanity stands, we don't stand alone." As humanity rallied its forces, preparing for the next phase of the war, the Salvatrix fleet began to move toward Earth. They believed this would be their final victory, The moment they would crush the heart of humanity. But what they didn't understand was that humanity had already proven its strength. No matter how hard the Salvatrix pushed, no matter what they threw at them, humanity would rise. The war was no longer just about survival, it was about the future. The future of Earth, the future of the galaxy, and humanity was ready to fight for it. As the Salvatrix fleet advanced toward Earth, humanity was not caught off guard. Every defense system, every strategy, and every weapon they had spent years perfecting was now in motion. The stakes had never been higher. The Earth was not just a planet. It was a symbol of humanity's unity, of their unwavering spirit. And the Salvatrix would soon learn that no force in the galaxy could break it. Alana Dereth stood in the human command center, her face illuminated by the glow of the holographic map in front of her. The Salvatrix were approaching at an alarming speed. Time was running out, but Alana wasn't worried. She had seen humanity overcome challenges far greater than this. She knew they were ready. "We've intercepted their fleet's movements," said Lieutenant Nash, his voice steady but urgent. "They're heading straight for Earth. We've got a few hours before they arrive." Alana's eyes narrowed, a quiet determination in them. "Then we have a few hours to prepare. It's not just about winning this battle. It's about showing the galaxy that humanity is more than capable of protecting what we love. Earth will not fall." Across the globe, every human settlement, from the bustling cities to the quiet research stations, was preparing for the coming storm. Thousands of ships, hidden in deep space or in orbit, were now fully operational. The people of Earth had come together as never before, united by the simple but powerful belief that their home was worth fighting for. The Salvatrix fleet was massive, their warships towering in the void of space. They had once believed that their size and strength would be enough to defeat humanity. But they had made a crucial mistake. They underestimated humanity's adaptability, its resourcefulness, and most importantly, its heart. The first wave of Salvatrix ships broke through the outer defenses of human space. It was a terrifying sight, their enormous warships firing upon the smaller human vessels that had been strategically positioned to delay them. The humans fought back with everything they had, each ship, each pilot, each soldier giving their all to protect Earth. But this was only the beginning. The Salvatrix were not just attacking with their ships. They had deployed ground forces, preparing to invade Earth itself. Cities were being evacuated, and the remaining human forces were preparing to defend the planet's surface. "We'll stop them," Alana said, her voice calm but filled with resolve. "They might have more ships, but we have something they can never understand. Our unity. We fight as one, and that's something no amount of power can defeat." Meanwhile, on the Salvatrix flagship, Zaltor, the Supreme Leader watched the battle unfold on his command center screens. His eyes were filled with frustration and disbelief as his fleet encountered more resistance than he had ever imagined. "They're fighting like they have nothing to lose," the Supreme Leader muttered. "How is this possible? These humans, they're everywhere. It's like they've anticipated our every move." His chief strategist, a seasoned veteran with years of experience in galactic warfare, stood by his side. "They've studied us. They've studied warfare itself. Their tactics are unpredictable, and their ships move in ways we can't anticipate. They're not just defending themselves, they're outsmarting us." The Supreme Leader clenched his fists, realizing that the war was not going according to plan. Humanity had proven to be a far more formidable enemy than they had ever anticipated. And now, they were learning what it meant to face an adversary who would never give up. Back on Earth, the humans were holding their ground. The battle raged in the skies above their cities, in the depths of space, and on the surface of their homeworld. But the humans were not fighting alone. As the Salvatrix fleet moved deeper into human space, ships from the Galactic Concord began to arrive. Alien species that had once stood on the sidelines of the war, unsure of where their loyalties should lie. But now, they saw the courage and strength of humanity, and they knew which side they should be on. Human and alien ships fought side by side, their combined strength overwhelming the Salvatrix forces. The Salvatrix were used to dominating their enemies with their sheer firepower, but they had never faced a united front like this. It wasn't just humanity's technology or tactics that made them so formidable. It was their ability to inspire others, to bring allies together in the face of a common enemy. The tide of the battle began to shift. The Salvatrix were pushed back, their ships damaged, their forces scattered. As the humans and their new allies continued to press the attack, the Salvatrix realized they had underestimated the power of unity. They had thought that by conquering Earth, they could break the will of humanity. But they had been wrong. In the heart of the Salvatrix flagship, the Supreme Leader stood in front of the large viewport, watching as his fleet was pushed back further. The humans had proven that they were not to be taken lightly. "Withdraw," the Supreme Leader ordered. "We cannot win this battle. Not today. But we will regroup. We will find another way to defeat them." The Salvatrix fleet, once so confident in its superiority, was now retreating. The battle for Earth was far from over, but humanity had shown that they were not just defending their home, they were changing the course of the war. The galaxy was witnessing the strength of a species that refused to be defeated. As the humans celebrated their hard-won victory, Alana stood on the command deck, looking out at the stars. Earth had been defended, but the war was still ongoing. The Salvatrix had learned a valuable lesson. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. No matter what came next, humanity would fight, not just for survival, but for their place in the galaxy. The Salvatrix Empire had retreated, their forces scattered and broken, their once proud fleet now a shadow of its former self. Humanity, against all odds, had defended their home, Earth, and had proven to the galaxy that they were not a species to be underestimated. The war was far from over, but the tide had undeniably shifted in favor of the humans. In the quiet moments after the battle, as the last of the Salvatrix warships flooded the outer reaches of human space, Alana Dareth stood on the balcony of the command center, looking out at the vastness of space. The stars twinkled in the distance, peaceful and distant, as though nothing had ever disturbed their calm. But Alana knew that peace had a price. "We've done it," said Lieutenant Nash, standing beside her. His voice was full of both relief and uncertainty. "We've won the battle, but the war is far from over." Alana nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars. "We've proven that we can defend ourselves, but the Salvatrix won't give up so easily. They'll regroup, they'll come back stronger. And when they do, we'll be ready." The human forces had fought with incredible courage, but they were also beginning to understand something even more important: the strength of unity. Across the galaxy, species that had once viewed humanity with skepticism now saw them in a new light. The humans had not only fought for survival, they had fought for something far greater: the future of the galaxy, the preservation of peace, and the belief that no force, no matter how great, could break the will of a united people. The Galactic Concord, which had remained neutral throughout the early stages of the war, now stood alongside humanity. Representatives from dozens of alien species gathered in a council chamber, watching the holographic display of the latest developments in the war. The Salvatrix had not only lost the battle for Earth, but they had also lost the support of the galaxy. The unity that humanity had forged was something no one had expected, and it had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Alana Dareth addressed the council, her voice steady and filled with determination. The Salvatrix Empire thought they could break us. They thought they could crush us beneath their might. But we've shown them that humanity does not stand alone. We fight for each other, for our homes, for our families, and for the future we want to create. The council members, once hesitant to take sides, now nodded in agreement. The humans had proven their strength, and they had earned the respect of every species in the galaxy. The alliance between humanity and the Galactic Concord was no longer a mere alliance. It was a powerful force that could change the future of the galaxy. "We will stand with you," said one of the representatives, a tall, golden-skinned alien with sharp, angular features. "We have seen your strength, and we believe in your cause. Together, we will stop the Salvatrix from threatening peace again." Alana smiled, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "Thank you. But this is not just about defeating an enemy. It's about building a future where all species can live in peace, where we can learn from each other and grow stronger together." Back on Earth, life was beginning to return to normal. The damage from the battles was being repaired, and the people of Earth were rebuilding, stronger and more united than ever. The victory had brought humanity closer together, not just in terms of their shared experience, but in their shared vision for the future. The Salvatrix, though defeated for now, were not finished. They were still a powerful empire, and they would not simply fade away. But the message had been sent. Humanity was not a race to be ignored. They were capable of incredible strength, innovation, and resilience. They had not only survived the Salvatrix's invasion, they had thrived. And now, as the war moved into its next phase, humanity would be ready. They had allies. They had strength. And most importantly, they had something that Salvatrix could never understand: a belief in the future, in hope, and in the power of unity. In the vastness of space, the war was not over, but humanity had proven that they would no longer be passive observers. They were players in the galaxy's future, shaping it with every decision they made, with every victory they earned. The Salvatrix would come again, but this time they would face a united front. Humanity, standing strong with their new allies, ready to protect their future and the future of the galaxy. And no matter what happened, one thing was clear: humanity would never stop fighting for what they believed in. As Alana stood at the front of the council chamber, she looked around at the faces of those who had fought beside her, who had fought for the same cause. She knew that this was just the beginning. The future was uncertain, but one thing was sure: they would face it together. The new dawn of humanity had begun.